All right, I'm back. And of course, as soon as I go, my cat starts talking. But anyway, we'll give it a minute to get started here. Hi. 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 Hi, Seth. Good to see you. Yeah, just got started here. Glad you're the first. Hi, baby. No, I can't have you acting like this. I'll stream now. What you doing? So yeah, I don't know. I had somebody talk about Buck Angel in a recent live that I did, saying that they watch Buck for like a critical view of transgenderism. Okay, what's your problem? Come on. You can get on my lap if you want. There's no pleasing them sometimes. So, is there a reason why you're acting like this? You were ignoring me before. You don't want me to do the video? Is that it? Okay, let me attempt again to go into an intro. So anyway, I have noticed, that Buck does seem to be very vocally outspoken about these issues, has been for a number of years. I'm no longer on Twitter. I deleted my Twitter last year. I am free. It's called X now. It really had nothing to do with the changes at Twitter. It just was a change in me that I felt I didn't, need to be there anymore or tied to it or tied to all of my many years of just screaming into the void, which is what I think people are doing on Twitter more often than not. But anyhow, I remember, seeing Buck get involved in those conversations at the time and be very critical. But I always kind of like had my own reservations about it. And I've noticed this. There are other prominent people speaking out about this issue who also are transitioners, and obviously they only go so far with their critiques and criticisms because for them they believe that this is a valid lifestyle and identity to have, and that their particular identity is a result usually of a medical issue or something. I very strongly don't agree with that perspective. And obviously, I've had many different critiques of this matter over the years, of all the different angles I see that are problematic with this movement, particularly, and how it's changing our culture. But at the end of the day, things have gotten more simple for me. And to me, it's just down to a question of truth. And I feel so often with these individuals like Buck, what's going on is they're being positioned to kind of do damage control and be a controlled opposition, as it were. If you're familiar with the idea of controlled opposition, it's an opposition that presents, a counter viewpoint that is put forward that only goes so far. So they don't they stop short of throwing out this whole idea, which is a total nonsense. No, they uphold the belief that this nonsensical idea is reality, but they they will criticize aspects of it, and that to me is just, pointless. But it's more comfortable for people a lot of the times to gravitate towards that because it is in our culture seen as a very extreme position to take, to be totally against this. And to me, it feels so much like it's the only sane perspective to take at all because it is so damaging. So the title of this, I decided to go over to Buck's channel and look, at some different videos and see what would be worthwhile to watch and respond to live. So this one came up. I'm going to put it on, watch it with you. I have not watched it before. The title I found intriguing. Its title is "Transition is Worth the Wait," which, to me is, I'm just interested to see what Buck is going to say and, what I'm going to have evoked in me watching it. And I think, for my audience, I'm sure you'll be interested in as well. And we are live recording this. So if you have thoughts while watching this, I'd be happy for you to, leave them in the comments and I will respond to them as they come up, or at a time during the video where I pause. We're likely to take several pauses during this. So anyway, without further ado, we do have some viewers. Thank you for being here, and let's get started. And Seth, it is awesome to hear that you have rescued a kitten. All right, I believe in kitten rescue. My own was a kitten that was rescued. It's the best way to find a cat. And hello to Ron. Okay, let's get this queued up.
I've gotten into an argument with this person online once, and she decided to post my stuff on the internet when I politely had asked her not to. And I said, I don't think children should medically transition until 18. That's what I said. And then she just got really mad and called me a devil's recruiting activist. And I said,
Of course, the ridiculous, pretentious intro.
Hey everybody, I caught myself another one. Super excited today because I have this very interesting person who reached out to me. So I get very lucky with these interviews sometimes. Well, most all of them, actually, all of them. I get very lucky with people like who we're going to interview today. So before we move forward, I just want to thank everybody again for always watching the videos, helping me really move them up. It's been difficult. I have a feeling that YouTube is not liking me lately, but whatever. We'll keep doing this. And like, subscribe, send it to your friends, ring that bell thing, and everything's going to be great for all of us. So today we have a guest here who I'm going to let introduce themselves, and then we're going to move forward with an awesome interview. So Coda, why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll move forward.
hello there. My name is Cora, and I'm a trans man, and I live in Canada.
In Canada. How old are you?
18.
18. And who's
18.
sitting next to you?
This is my mother, right
Hey,
here.
Mom. Hi, Mom. I would love for you to also be part of the conversation if that's okay. If not,
No
that's okay.
problem.
I'm
Great,
sure
great. I
Mom is a
appreciate
big
that
part
so
of
much.
this
So, how
conversation.
amazing. We have a young trans man here from Canada today with his mother, and we're going to talk a little bit about his transition and the things that are going on in the younger space and other things that Coda reached out to me actually and is giving me his time. So I very much value this interview a lot. So with that, Coda, let's talk about a little bit about your transition. Can you tell us when you started to transition?
Okay. think I'm turning into a little bit of a trap out here because I'm starting to forget things.
Right on.
Um, so I think it was a little over 2 years ago.
Okay, so 16 years old, right?
Yes.
Yep. And tell me a little bit about how that process worked for you. How did you realize that you possibly were trans, and did you go to therapy or what happened?
Yes, lots of therapy.
Lots of therapy. And so what was the sort of thing that sort of got you thinking to yourself, maybe I'm a trans man?
Well, it was actually not anything to do with anyone or anything on the internet. I
Okay.
just I knew what the word trans meant,
Mhm.
but I didn't, think about it. And then I thought I was a lesbian. Then I thought I was bi. And then I said, okay, there's something a little off here because I'm feeling very distraught about my, what, right? And
Yep. Yep.
Thought she was a lesbian. Now, how many times have we heard that before? But was distraught because she didn't like her genitals in relation to the idea of being with a woman. Anyway, I just, it's so, I can't tell you the number of times I hear female transitioners say this. I thought I was a lesbian. The level of like, I don't know. We've went over this on this channel many times, but it's just appalling to me that so many young women who maybe are experiencing this kind of thing, like maybe attraction to other women or girls, whether they are bisexual or lesbian, get kind of sucked into this instead. It's frightening. It's like, how quickly it can all just kind of spiral out of control.
and
About
I was
about your
chatting with
body? Was it your
suicidal,
body?
yes, like
Mhm.
my gender.
Mhm. Okay.
And
Yeah.
I was really upset. And also, I'm autistic, so that adds on to it.
Oh, and she is autism.
So you have autism.
Yes,
When were you diagnosed with autism?
at age 4.
At age 4. Oh, interesting. I'm gonna go to your mom now. So, hey, mom, thanks for joining us. I very much appreciate it. There's so much for this conversation. So, tell me a little bit about what happened with Coda and why he got a diagnosis of autism. Could you?
Yeah, I, I guess at where his preschool, he was
Mhm.
going to therapy because he walked quite late.
Okay.
So he was put into a specialized program
Mm.
to help him with walking and stuff like that. And so,
Okay.
well, being there, he did also did some preschool there as well because they do up from um, preschool up to kindergarten as
Okay.
well as helping kids that need help with walking and disabilities. And they are the ones that possibly noticed it. That Coda seemed very distant. He did some pacing a lot in the classroom, um, things like
Okay.
that. He didn't have
Right.
what he was just very different
Sure.
from the other kids. Sure.
Sure. So then he got a diagnosis of autism at 4 years old.
Yeah, they
Mhm.
did testing, and he would wait about a year before they did some
Okay.
testing, and they did some testing and watched him
Okay.
and discovered he would had a form of autism. So.
So tell me, after he got or are you more, because 4 is not really kind of understanding things as much as as the parent. So tell me, after he got that diagnosis, did that help you as a parent sort of understand what was going on?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
And,
At first, I was a little bit confused about it,
mhm,
but
yeah.
yeah, it did help.
Okay. And so now I'm wondering, after the diagnosis and all of those things, and I'm starting to learn more about autism because I'm starting to see more and more people being sort of diagnosed with that. And it seems to me in the trans community and the younger generation, like his age, that there tends to be a lot more these days young people with autism and identifying as trans. Do you both see that?
I've
Yes.
heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, Coda, going back to you.
Now, why would that be? There's a number of reasons why. Um, but I mean, we had on a previous stream here someone come on who has been diagnosed with autism, and he spoke about how, he had it kind of floated to him by teachers and the like that it was normal for autistic people to be trans because they don't like rules. Or not like rules, but like they have trouble, with gender rules and conforming to them. So it's far more common. So I think that's an aspect of it. A lot of people I've known who have been diagnosed with autism do have some kind of I don't know, they just are, maybe more masculine women or more feminine men sometimes, to certain various degrees. But how that looks in every individual is so random. And, every individual, like I've said many times, has masculine and feminine traits. Nobody is like, 100% one or the other. That's kind of a myth. Everybody inherits traits from both parents, and we are a conglomeration of masculinity and femininity. It exists in every person on every plane. So I just, to me, I find it rather odd that it's I think the other thing with that is these people are generally medicalized from an early age. They learn to look up to doctors and authority figures and trust them. And they also are very obsessed with having rules to follow. It makes their life easier if they understand the rules they're supposed to operate by. So it can be very easy with something like gender, which is, like I've explained, very fluid between people. It's something that I think for a lot of them is hard to process, like what their role is supposed to be and to work that out. So they tend to gravitate towards those extremes because it makes more sense. Like, okay, well, if I'm attracted to a female, then I need to act like a male. Or, like I just assume that with like this individual because she said that she was experiencing same-sex attraction as well as like, has this autism diagnosis. I also think like they just enjoy the routine of it because that's the thing about this. Their lives operate by routine. Routines give their life meaning and structure, and they do for all people. But like, I think it's more of a comforting thing that they're more obsessed with than the average person, because if they don't have a solid routine, they tend to fall apart. I mean, I could go on, but I just think it's interesting that was, brought up here watching this so far. Yes, the cat has given up his protest, thankfully. He's not getting a third can of cat food tonight. I apologize for my feline companion's behavior. Ron thinks I look pretty tonight. Oh, thank you. Empyrean Vol says, I'm always a little suspicious of the autism diagnosis. I knew severely autistic people and they could hardly communicate. Yeah, it is a spectrum, but I have looked at some people side eye, like, you sure about that? You know? Oh, I'm just really sensitive and good with animals. Yeah, I don't think that's the case with this individual, obviously. They've kind of gone into it clearly, but I get what you're saying there. All right, so let's continue.
You see more young people, maybe your age or that, or who are identifying as autistic. Yeah.
Yes, and the thing that scares me though is that if a person wants to medically transition, I don't
Mhm.
care if this person's an adult or a child, they need to go through therapy first.
Great. Thank you.
And
I
that's for
appreciate.
anybody, right?
That's right. I appreciate you
That
saying
way
that.
they get room
Tell
to
me,
say
tell
the
me a
right
little bit about
things.
how long you went through therapy.
Oh my gosh, quite a while. And the doctor asked me a lot of questions, and he said, "Are you sure it's not related to your disability?" And I said, "Well, I think it's really would be helpful for me because it's helped me a lot to level out myself a lot
Mhm,
and not to feel so constantly anxious."
mhm.
When I took the
Great.
hormones, I started to notice the relieving of the dysphoria. I mean, we all still have anxious days, but that's just a normal part of life.
We still
No,
have
it's not. It's not.
That's right.
I started the
So tell.
hormones.
It's not. I mean, I don't know where we've gotten to this point where everyone is anxious. It's not normal. The level of anxiety that the young people seem to have is off the charts. And I think a lot of it has to do with the overstimulation that they're under, especially if you have autism, then, you know, overstimulation is going to be extra distressing to you. The thing about the hormones, I have noticed this with like some female transitioners specifically, testosterone does tend to mellow them out. So if they were a female that was maybe, I don't know, more out of control emotionally, like acting out, maybe even violent, taking testosterone would kind of like settle their nerves a bit. I don't know how else to say it, but it's another strange form of gynecology that's being practiced today where individuals are being given these hormones that are treating so much more than just like the quote unquote gender issue. And a lot of the time, that is also what kind of hooks them to these drugs because, you know, these things are treating their psychological and behavioral issues as well as helping them to develop secondary sex characteristics of like the opposite sex to a certain degree. I mean, well, let's be real here, like to a certain degree.
I was 18.
Oh, so you started the hormones when you were 18. Oh,
Yes.
thanks, Mom. Yeah, yeah, no, that was going to be my next question. So you went through maybe a couple years of therapy, it seems like, and that therapist. Well, we have this in America. I don't know if you have it in Canada. It's called affirmation therapy. I think you might have it as well, where if you come in and say you're trans, you're immediately stamped and no therapy, really, and you're just given hormones. But that doesn't seem like that was your case. It seems to me like you actually had to go through some therapy.
Yes.
Yeah. And so tell me a little about that during the time you were going through therapy.
I mean,
The
I don't give a
therapist was
damn about
questioning
this, honestly. I'll be clear,
your
like just
sort
to
of
interject my opinion. I don't care about the therapy piece. I don't feel like therapy is helpful for a lot of people. I've made that I've made that statement in multiple different ways over the years on this channel. Like a lot of people go into therapy and end up a lot worse than they were when they started. And a lot of it is just about learning how to use the language to navigate the system in such a way to get what you want out of it. I mean, that's what I see from a lot of it, a lot of people in it. They don't, they know exactly what they need to say and do and what hoops to jump through to get what they want at the end. All right. So I don't feel like just because you put a person who's on this track already thinking this in their mind through a couple of years of therapy first, that is going to somehow do something or be meaningful, because honestly, it's just, again, about getting them to jump through the hoops necessary to get the little prize at the end. And honestly, it helps, again, to strengthen and validate a false identity. So again, I just, this stuff is so prevalent, and we're acting like, oh, well, we need more therapists. Like, the therapization of this culture has led us to this point, honestly. It has led us to this identity crisis that so many people are having. And many people are spending way too much of their time in their life gazing inward, not to know themselves better, but to like just be completely self-absorbed. But anyway, like, let's continue. This is just frustrating watching this
that
kind of
might be
stuff.
trans, yeah.
Yes, he didn't say that it wasn't true. He just called me he called me that, but we also went through like a lot of screening.
Right.
Didn't say it
That's
wasn't
what I'm
true,
trying to
but
get
we're
to.
calling you
That's
the
what I'm trying to
opposite
get
sex
to. And what I want the
pronouns.
outside world to see from these interviews is that, you need this sort of intense
I
space
agree.
of therapy. Yeah. Thank you, Mom.
I
Thank you,
agree.
Mom. I appreciate that. I mean, I do as an older person, and I get called old because I'm, but
Because
I'm
you
more
are.
of a structure. I believe this needs to have a structure. And to me, you went through kind of what I went through, which was,
Yes.
it's considered gatekeeping, right?
If children need to medically transition, we need to have a lot more resources for anybody, because if we start putting hormones into people's body, bad things do happen,
Thank you.
and good
I mean,
things.
of course, there's always pros and cons to everything, but here's the problem I have with a
There's
young
no
person.
pro.
You're 18,
There
you
is
can
no
make those
pro.
choices. I'm going to say that. I
Yes.
still feel that, everyone's different, and that's what we're not having this. Just because one
Put the
person
crazy
feels
girl
trans
on some
doesn't mean that
testosterone so
person
she'll
is.
mellow
I
out
think
is
we're
not a
not
pro.
having this sort of space where it says just because you say you're trans does not make you trans. I don't believe that. But you went through therapy and you did a lot of work on yourself to get to the space. So tell me now, you're on testosterone and how are you feeling?
Great.
And what does that mean, great, to you?
That I'm growing a beard like Trampoff.
Right on. And I want to know more about your mental. So, I do know that the physical connects to the mental. And when you see yourself in the mirror now and you see yourself getting facial hair, how does that make you feel?
Good.
So it makes you kind of feel more at ease walking the
Yes.
street. Hmm. Right.
Yes.
How is your autism doing?
It's doing okay.
Hmm. You feel like your autism
How's your autism
is
going?
a little less, or I don't really know how that works, and I apologize if I'm
No,
saying it
no,
wrong.
How's
Yeah.
your autism,
it's
Buck?
not wrong. I think it's a good way to ask it, but I think it's just leveled out.
It's leveled
The
out.
dysphoria
Fantastic.
and the autism, sometimes it if one levels out, it'll help the other one to level out.
Right. That's right. I
But I told, I mean, sorry, I told Dakota that they should wait before they do any kind of
Mhm.
any kind of intervention with when it comes to putting the hormones and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Just wait a while.
So with that, Mom, so you said for him to wait to start any medical intervention, and that's why, is that one of the reasons why he did wait till 18?
At least he's an adult; he can make more decisions.
Hmm. What about
I would have
surgery?
preferred later.
How can you call your daughter a
Well,
he?
yeah, I mean,
Like,
I
how?
understand that it's a difficult thing. So now you're
I'd
on
be covering my face
testosterone,
too.
Coda. You're on testosterone,
Like,
right?
really?
Yes.
And so how long now has it been that you've been using testosterone?
Maybe almost a year.
Oh, 1 year. So tell me about the changes that are going on, the
Voice.
physical.
The voice and
The
a lot
voice.
of body hair
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
acne.
Weirdly, I didn't get acne, which is weird, but might have been
Yeah,
because I'm
because you were an
older
adult
when I was
woman.
transitioned. I was like 30 years old, but I don't
And
know
I'm
if it's
also planning to get surgery.
okay. Yeah, let's talk
Hysterectomy.
about that. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about surgery. What's the thing that you want to do right now?
I'm getting a hysterectomy. Basically.
The first thing you're going to do is a hysterectomy.
Yes.
Not the other one.
You're
No, because the
18
other one
years
is going to
old.
cost like 2 years
You're
to wait
18
because
years old
it is
and you're
private
getting a
here
hysterectomy.
for trans people, but it's going to wait like 2 years.
For
Jeez.
you mean to get your breasts removed?
Yes.
Yes. So that's a 2-year waiting list
Yes.
because it's funded by the government.
Yeah.
Right, because you have socialized medicine. So wow, doesn't
This
that shock
isn't
you that
medicine.
there's a
This is
2-year wait for
sick.
that?
They're sterilizing. Like,
How is
listen
that
to this.
possible?
Like, let's just
No.
remember at the beginning, what did we hear about this young woman? She's a lesbian and she is autistic. So the Canadian government, through their medical health socialized medicine program, funded by the taxpayer, will be sterilizing an 18-year-old autistic lesbian. (18 years old). She does not have a condition with her uterus. She does not have a cancer, and she's going to be sterilized. So she'll never be able to bear a child. And it's like I cannot. Like, I don't know. First thing you're going to get done to yourself is remove your ability to bear a child. Need to take a moment with that. It's so upsetting to me, like, that this isn't thought of more critically. And people have a very blasé attitude about this, like having your uterus removed. She will not be able to produce her own hormones. Okay, so she will be reliant on the medical system forever to get hormones into her body, which she needs so she will not be producing her own hormones. And she has a female body, regardless of, what she feels about that, regardless of how she identifies. She has a female body and it has certain needs and it functions in a certain way. It's so distressing to me. It's so distressing. Like, I don't know. I do know there's a problem. I know too much. Mountain Esoteric says, for a child with parents' pain after having invested the years of therapy, might feel extra difficult to back out of physical transitioning. Yeah, I do think a lot of this is sunken cost fallacies. And you see this with like transitioners oftentimes that go on and like we'll talk about complications from surgery and how they're going to get a new surgery, to address the complications that they have from the last one. And it's like, when is enough going to be enough for you? Like, when are you going to be like, you've gone so far down this path and you just are not going to stop, are you? Like, you're just, because you've invested so much time, because you've suffered so much, like, at some point, we've all been there in life, where we kind of like don't want to give up on something because of everything we put in. But like, the thing is, this isn't true. That's what I bring it back to. Like, it's so heartbreaking to me because it isn't true. Like, this isn't a reality that can be done. Like, you can't medically transition. And this young woman is being told, oh yeah, you can do this, that, and the other. And now, you'll be able to like live socially as a man. And it's, no, you're just making yourself into a lifelong medical patient and you're taking away like your freedom essentially. And, you know, when we think about, like I've said this before, but I think a lot of this is planned. I think they are like happy to sterilize these people because they see them as a population that maybe should not be breeding. I do think there is a form of eugenics in this. I do, especially when you look at the rates of how many of these people have autism. How many young female transitioners have autism? How many of them have been sterilized? These young women will not be having children of their own. They may adopt children later on in life. But they're not going to be having their own. Anyway, this is really tough. I know it is really tough. It's heartbreaking. Like when I really sit here and think about it and listen to this, and he's just like, I'm sorry, Buck is a she. Just going off like, oh, a trampa. Like, oh, I'm glad that you're getting therapy. Like this person doesn't need, the last thing this person needs is therapy. Honestly, this person needs less therapy. This person has been therapized enough. What leads a person down that path? Was it some kind of sexual child abuse? Like that is common. That is common. I'll just say that with most female transitioners I've known. I can't think of one that didn't have that happen. So sterilization, camouflaging the same-sex attraction, lifelong patient, any complications that get too overwhelming, post-experimentation in California, they will be offered free-made euthanasia. Oh yeah, I mean, that's already happened. I read a story in like in the Netherlands several years ago of a female transitioner who was in her 30s who chose to get, Canada. Yeah, sorry, because Canada has the maid. Apologies, but I read a story years ago of a female transitioner in her 30s, like she was very young, who chose to be euthanized. Like she elected it because of the severe emotional distress and turmoil she was in. And in her like letter about it, she just, detailed how she was abused as a child, how she was left feeling after like the transition she went through. It was heartbreaking. Like this young woman, I don't know. It really was upsetting. Like I'd have to look for it again, but I have read about this happening where a female transitioner did seek out euthanasia in, I believe it was the Netherlands. It could have been another like Western European nation, but and yeah. And now that's in Canada. La-di-da. Here we are, folks. The future looks grim.
That says to me, there's a lot of people who want to take their breasts off, which means they're all female to male trans people. A 2-year wait.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's a problem with
let me
that
ask
many
you this
females
question.
removing their
Can
breasts.
anybody
That's a big problem.
go to use your medical space in Canada? Can anybody go there who states they're trans and have what we call top surgery? Or do you need a note from a doctor?
There has to
Double
be a variety of
mastectomy.
referrals. There has to
Okay.
be a variety of questions.
Okay.
Okay, so you have to jump
doctor
through some
will
hoops.
ask
Okay.
you many, many questions.
Okay.
And you can go as much therapy as you need, but you're responsible for scheduling and scheduling all the appointments and all that,
Okay.
all the other yada.
Mm.
Yeah, you're basically responsible for yourself, right? Which is you are, right? When you're an adult, you're responsible for your own
That's right.
therapy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's why a lot of people have to wait, is also because There's people with breast cancer that have to
Women with breast cancer.
their
Okay,
breasts off
great.
if they need to do that.
Okay, great. That's great to know that they're putting people who have cancer or some other kind of form of illness ahead of
Right.
trans top surgery. Is that
Right, because
correct?
that's the only
Yeah,
reason
I
that
agree. They should. I mean, even though
healthy
some people will
breasts
push
or
back on me
that
and
breast
say
should
that
be
it's an
removed.
illness as well, and we need our top surgery, but it's not life threatening.
No.
Right. Some people will tell us that it's life threatening if they don't have their breasts removed, they're going to kill themselves. Do they say that in Canada too?
No.
Let me give you an example. Here in America, they're pushing hormone blockers, puberty blockers on children here, and they're using yeah, that's right. So they're using this idea that if a
Okay.
child doesn't get their medicine, they'll kill themselves. They say that all the time here, which isn't true. Do they say that in
Okay, let's just talk about that. It's so interesting that Buck stops at, oh no, we can't have puberty blockers. We can put kids in therapy and give them cross sex hormones, but don't put them on puberty blockers. So I guess that's where the boundary is being drawn right now. Like, I guess that's where the powers that be want with this, like I said, controlled opposition angle that we're seeing here with people like Buck stepping into this conversation. That's where they want it. It's like, okay, well, the extremist, point of view is to, or the two polarities that we can choose from is either like full on acceptance of this or no kids on puberty blockers. And so you have to pick your battle instead of, just being like, I'm against this entirely because this is, absurd.
Canada?
I don't hear them say it.
Okay, good.
A child, if they absolutely need puberty blockers, then they have to do it because if they're very, let's say they're very dysphoric and they're going through many years of therapy, then yes, take it. I would personally probably push back on it, but if that's what they feel they need to do and the parents are informed, then that's their decision, right? I can't stop people from making their own decisions. But
that's right.
No, it's not right. It's not right. How does a child know that they can consent to not having to go through puberty? How does somebody consent to that? How does somebody consent to not maturing into an adult human? When you block puberty, you're not just blocking the development of your secondary sex characteristics. You're blocking the development of your brain, of your bones, of your muscles, of everything. Puberty isn't just about growing your boobs and getting your period. It's much bigger than that. For men and for women, we go through so much during puberty. We mature mentally as well as physically. How does somebody consent to that? I don't think this is right. How can a parent consent to be like, yeah, I'll just have my child not go through puberty because they're so, distressed. How have we gotten to this point? I really don't understand how we've gotten to this point where people are this crazy. This is nuts. How do you have a kid and then look at it and be like, I don't want you, I'm okay with you not maturing into an adult, even though that is my job, is to steward you into adulthood. I think with a lot of these parents, though, they get a sense of identity themselves from having a special child, a rare, special unicorn child that they can parade around and that they can, talk about over brunch, all the special things that are different makes them stand out as a child. You know, a lot of parents do live vicariously through their kids. I do think that's a part of it. Maybe they wanted a child of the opposite sex, and then they impose that as well. I've seen that happen as well with some of these parents. I just need to, you know, collect myself. I just, how do parents do this? How do parents do this?
Oh, they do. That's interesting to know. I actually thought it was as bad as America. So
Canada is worse than
so-
America with
see,
this
I do have
nonsense.
issues with puberty blockers. I'm not sure a 10-year-old even understands what dysphoria is in a sense that it's so bad that, you know, I mean, there's many problems with giving puberty blockers. There's long-term
Yeah.
health problems.
If the kid is really dysphoric and is diagnosed by a doctor and needs to do it, then
Mhm,
I can't stop people from giving it to their kids, right? I mean,
mhm.
because they're the legal guardians, they know what's best, and that's where people need to understand that parents know the kids best.
Definitely agree with you. I am a parent. So I definitely agree with you that parents definitely need to be part of this process. So here in America, they're blocking parents from having any access to their children at schools. If the child wants to be trans, they don't have to tell their parents and they can keep it a secret at school. Is that the same in Canada?
I think so.
It is?
Well, I
Oh
know
my
that
gosh.
they don't have to tell them. They have
Right.
GSA groups like the Gay Straight Alliance
Mhm.
in the schools. The kid doesn't have to tell them.
I mean, it is encouraged though.
Right. But by it's encouraged, but they don't have to do it. And so can the teachers, let's say you, Coda, tell your teacher and you're
Okay,
15
so when I was in
and you
high
say, I
school,
don't
I
want to
was a
tell my
part of our
parents.
Gay
Can the
Straight
teachers
Alliance
keep
at
that
the
as
time. Oops, just banged my elbow on the desk. And there were some people in that group that were unsure about their orientation. We didn't have anyone in our group that identified as trans because this wasn't a social contagion the way it is. I think I knew one person who would be trans, or well, no, I guess two people like in the greater community that would be trans, that were part of like my social circle at all. At the time, they were both female. This was, you know, the early aughties. And I just think about it like, you know, there were people who were not sure, you know, if they were gay or if they were bisexual or whatever in our Gay Straight Alliance. Like they were there just because they were questioning, you know, or maybe, you know, something like that. I think that, you know, or maybe they were gay because we did have some people that were gay in the group as well. They were sure about their identity, or the you know, however you want to talk about it. And I don't know that all of them were out to their parents at the time, but I think it's such a different sort of thing because even though they might have been, you know, like identifying as a gay man, for example, and maybe their parents didn't know at the time, it's not as if they were taking on an entirely new persona the way that this is done. It's not like they were coming to school and changing their clothes, you know, and using a different name and using different pronouns and that kind of thing. Like it wasn't that level of, you know, deception. And the fact, you know, the thing is too, like with our Gay Straight Alliance, it's this was not something that the teachers participated in. You know, this was a student group that we had. where we did our own thing, you know, in conjunction, I think, with PFLAG was the local organization that we worked with for resources, you know, but it wasn't something that the whole school participated in. You know, it was something you elected to do in your free time and of your own free choice. It wasn't something that, you know, you would go to school and like everybody at the school, all the teachers and students knew you by some other identity entirely than your family. You know, it was this one group we had where we talked about these issues together. It wasn't like mainstream to the point of like nausea. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's so, things are just so different in such a short amount of time. Like this was not even an issue, you know, when I was in high school. And we were dealing also with people trying to get our club shut down as well as a student club because of, you know, how offensive it was. You know, it was a different era at the time. The political landscape was very different and there was a lot more hostility, you know. So maybe that had something to do with it, but I still feel like even the degree of the deception here that we're talking about is so much crazier, you know. It's one thing to like not tell your parents that you've got gay feelings. It's a whole other to like go to school and, you know, have a whole new persona and identity and gender. Surround yourself with good people is the best advice. I mean, yeah, I don't know how you keep people send their kids into these snake pits though. It's like, yeah, it's good to, yeah, be surrounded with good people, but again, like, what do we do in this situation? Like with this young woman, I don't know. I believe society is being brainwashed by a cultural Marxist strategy. Oh dear. Well, speaking of Marxism, I will be announcing a new reading or a new thing I'll be doing on the channel. I'll announce it now. I am planning in the upcoming year to read Marx's Capital, and I'll be doing it live. And you are more than welcome to all come and discuss, because like the problem with this, like talking about like the term cultural Marxist, I hate that term because it's like Marxism isn't about these cultural issues. I get what people mean when they say that, because, you know, there's this dividing of society into the oppressed versus oppressor, but like Marxism is fundamentally about economics. And I think that's like totally lost. Like the education about that's totally lost. All right, so I'll catch up with these comments and then we'll start watching again. Yeah, I agree. I agree totally here. Some of the worst mental outcomes seems directly related to limited natural puberty. I mean, if you don't go through puberty, then your genitals don't develop. How are they going to fashion you a makeshift set of genitals? You know, how are they going to cut them up in a way that is, you know, if they don't have much skin to work with? Anyway, it's grim. I hate thinking about it, but you know, that's what happened to Jazz. I love Buck Angel's opposition to the term dead naming. She has discussed her previous 30 years as a woman. Buck is still a woman. I'll just put that out there. This person right here on camera with the glasses, that's a woman. I, I'm glad that Buck, has some affection for her former identity, but yeah, that Buck is a woman. Buck is a woman that took testosterone and had her breasts removed, and I think has also had a hysterectomy at this point due to the complications of taking testosterone for years. But Buck is female. Buck was born a woman. Buck will die a woman. If, in thousands of years, Buck's skeleton is dug up, they're gonna know that Buck was a woman. Cuba is the exception when it comes to Marxism and trans. I don't know much about Cuba's how they deal with this issue, but it's interesting. Ron is shocked that Buck is a woman. Buck has shocked you. He is a biological woman, but I have no issue with using. All right. No, Buck doesn't look like, Buck is much smaller than your average man. Buck is going to stand out in it. I've seen videos of Buck standing and talking to men because I first became familiar with Buck back when she was being lauded as this groundbreaking porn star because, she was the first FTM porn star. And Buck would go to these conventions and get, videotaped talking to men who were interested in buying her DVDs and whatever. Buck does not in any way, standing next to, any males fit in. You can be on camera like this, but yes, that's another whole thing I don't like about Buck as well. Another off-putting thing about Buck, Buck got her start in pornography. All right. People know who Buck is because she was a porn star. So, there's a whole, Buck is all into a bunch of, stuff that isn't, well, Buck is a part of many, many worlds. We'll just say that aren't great. Yeah. Well, Ron has, yeah. Ron, I'm glad I could expand your horizons this evening. The more you know. All right, let's continue with this upsetting video.
A secret from the parents?
I've never been in that scenario, so I don't really know.
Okay.
But I think that they would ask questions as to why you don't want to tell your parents.
Right. But that's not happening here. That's not happening. The teacher is just supposed to keep it away from the parents. Now they're saying, well, come on, let's be honest. There are parents who are gross and horrible and abusive to their kids, but that's very few and far as I'm
concerned. None more than the people who transition their kids. I can't think of anything more gross or abusive to do to your child.
Say, you're still a kid to me. But that being said, even that, to me, the parent should be involved. I don't understand why they wouldn't want a parent involved in a very life-changing choice. That's why I love seeing your mom here, Coda. I think that says a lot to me about your family and that they care about you.
Yeah, and I think that goes for any age. If you're going to transition, you might as well tell your family, because one day if you walk into a store and they see you like that, they're going to question what you're doing.
Which isn't a good thing. I mean, it's like you have to be involved in this, and it makes it a healthier space. It seems like you and your mom have an excellent relationship.
Right. But the whole purpose of this, I think, this deception that's being encouraged in the public school system is to break down the family ties. We've seen this with a lot of different social movements and the way the social justice conversation goes. You know, they actively are pushing this narrative that people need to disown their family over political disagreements. And this is just another way that they're doing it. You know, position the parents who are not accepting of this, or who are, even if they're, you know, confused, unsure, have no idea what's going on, you know, are kind of horrified that their kid has gotten sucked into this social contagion cult, you know, and they have questions, or they're, you know, like, just, you know, I can only imagine. This is just another way of encouraging the youth, children, very vulnerable children, right? Because when you are in those years of adolescence, you're already in a fragile state anyway. So they're just encouraging and trying to promote the dissolution of strong family connections. So, you know, having your family not involved is going to make you a lot more easily put on this trajectory and to go through all of it much more quickly than if you have a vocal parent who is actively there, who actually is like concerned and, you know, encouraging and promoting caution in the matter, providing some kind of direction in the matter that might, you know, giving them a different angle. I don't know how. I mean, I just don't know how parents are dealing with this, honestly. I would
I
It scares
talk
me.
a lot about politics on my page, about the transitioning of the kids and stuff. I just try to create a loving environment for
Fantastic.
everyone.
Of course, that's what it's all about. We're just trans. It's not everything who we are. I mean, you're going to go on. So tell me what you're doing now with yourself. Are you in school?
Yes,
Mm-hmm. And
I'm going
are you?
into to finish my upgrading and then going into nursing.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Nursing, how are you
That's
going to
everybody
be a
out there. That's what
nurse
I'm
and
talking about.
lift a patient if you've removed your pectoral muscles? How are you going to be able to do your job as a nurse if you've had your uterus and breasts removed? How are you going to physically be able to help anyone?
I just want you to be happy. And if, you know, this transition helps you move forward and creates a space for you to understand, trans is just a condition you have, but it's about being, you know, coda and finding a space in the world that you can
And people
be
don't always
somebody.
understand that just because a child is could be trans, that doesn't mean they're going to medically transition, because not everybody does.
That's right. That's right.
There
That's
are
why I
some people
distinguish. Sorry.
that, my goodness, that they maybe a boy, but then they dress like a girl, and you don't even realize that they were born males.
There you
Yeah, I
go.
have an issue with that sometimes.
But if
Yeah.
they dress fully like female and you don't realize what they're doing, and they
Okay,
shave their
what does
beard
a
and everything,
female, at the end
then
of the
maybe
day,
there
what
isn't
does a
any.
female or a male dress like? If I put on clothes, they're mine. They're a female's clothes. I saw my friend earlier today who is a butch lesbian. All right. What she was wearing were female clothes. Now our society codes that style of dress as masculine, but you know, this is again another issue. Like we have not progressed to the point of, you know, still like this 18-year-old still thinks that boys are this and girls are that. Girls wear this, boys wear that. When boys can wear dresses and girls can wear pants, like, It is 2023, people. Women wear pants. Women wear button-ups. You know, for a lot of jobs, women have to dress that way, like, as well. It's just like there's a lot of jobs, you know, out there that require women to wear certain types of clothing. Like if you're a woman in the trades at all, you can't be very feminine when you're working. It just doesn't work. Okay? It's not going to work. So I get concerned when I hear that kind of like language, and just to put it out there, you know, listening to this, like when I hear that, I'm still like, okay, you know, and there are men that are out there that wear women's clothing, and, you know, regardless of how you feel about it, like they're still men, or you know, women's clothing. Again, they might like more feminine clothing, but once they buy the clothes, they belong to a man. It's just, you know, wild to me here that like we're still in this state of we're in this state still where we're still like really pushing these like extreme gender norms. Anyway, going on to what this kid is making a point, Coda is making a point, and I don't really understand.
They feel that is not needed for them. So that's why we have to be careful with what we're
Ron's checking out. Bye, Ron.
That everyone's on hormones.
That's right.
Everybody is.
No, not everybody is. So I agree with you. And it's, you know, I do make a distinction, I'm sure you know, between a transsexual person. I would probably consider you more of a transsexual person than a transgender, but that's your choice. But I only do that for helping myself to distinguish the difference between somebody who could be trans, but isn't necessarily wanting to take that medication, but they identify as trans. You know, I don't identify as a trans. I identify as a man who has a condition called gender dysphoria, who
I
is
call
a
myself a
transsexual.
transsexual male.
There you go. So we're very much the same. And I think we have a lot, and it's really refreshing, Coda, to see a young person like you who really does see that we have to be careful with what we put out there as trans people. So what do you think about people who don't make any effort to look like a male or a female, but want people to use pronouns?
I don't see how that's logical. If you're gonna look like a female and gonna call
Okay, and now we're getting into this
this
kind of silliness where they think they're more valid than other crazy people. Because that really irritates me. It's always irritated me. Back in the day on Tumblr, I remember these people getting called true scum, where they were like, you know, in order to be trans, you have to medically transition. So basically, it sounds like Buck and Coda here are now making fun of the non-binary people, right? The they, them people. That sounds like what their thing is, or the people who, you know, want to be called he when they, you know, are very feminine women, or, you know, she when they're very masculine men. Like, what? I don't understand it. Like, honestly, I don't understand it from the trans community, honestly. Like, now I get why I don't want to call them whatever they want to be called, but like, why do you have a problem with it?
Because that's what logically comes to mind.
Thank you. God, you're a smart kid. I mean,
logically.
I mean, you know, I'm not laughing at people. I'm laughing at the situation. It just seems so absurd.
Some people make threats.
Yeah, those people are absurd.
No,
you're not.
You're
though.
right, Mom.
Yep. Let them use the female bathroom because whatever, they're male. I call them, some of them male, because they sound it. They're trying to be female, but not really good at it. And they make threats.
Okay, so there's like, there's a hierarchy. You have to be good at it, apparently.
Yeah.
You have to be good at it. That's the difference. So like the difference between like good, the good trans folk now are like Buck here, is that Buck does a better job of being trans. You know, Buck makes more of an effort to pass than some of these other people who, at the beginning of this video, we already discussed, a lot of whom have autism. So they already struggle with understanding things like social cues. And they've been, you know, hyped up on this, you know, bandwagon and the extremist language that goes along with it for years, basically filling them up with hubris, making them think that, you know, they're the biggest victims on the planet, and that anytime that they don't get exactly catered to because society operates in a different way still, you know, for now, in some parts. I mean, there's so many places where it doesn't. There's so many places where you can't find a women's bathroom. They're all gender neutral bathrooms, or, you know, but you know, regardless. So basically now it's coming down to like who passes more, who does a better job, who's making more of an effort. And I get kind of like, again, that comes down to money, class, and resources. And, you know, a lot of times like levels of intellect as well. So again, it's like this elitism being set up in the trans community that, you know, these people like Buck, and there are others who've, you know, made themselves the controlled opposition to help, you know, control this narrative, you know. And what separates them? You know, a lot of it is class. You know, a lot of it is down to who has more money to invest in their transition, who has more money to like feminize or masculinize himself. And that's going to be the arbiter of who's like ridiculous and who should be respected or not. I mean, like, when you really break down their logic, it's makes me like very disturbed. It makes me like, okay,
There'd be some problems, and I just said, well,
I think we need to get rid of all bathrooms that have multiple stalls and just where one person goes in and shuts the door.
There you go. That's right. Like an airplane. I always use the airplane as an example because I fly a lot. I'm like, nobody ever bitches about the airplane toilet. A man was just in there. Then a woman just went in. Then a man just went in, right? Like nobody cares. And so
yeah,
that's
except
what
the
can
thing
show
is,
that
you
you're right,
know,
Coda. If
the
you
thing
look
with
just
that
single-stall
is
toilets,
men have this tendency to install things like cameras in women's restrooms and to peep on women in those, you know, restrooms. So like, I just feel like this would, I feel like women should have a space where there are multiple stalls. And also, like, how many multiple private rooms are you going to make? Like at airports, it doesn't make sense. There are spaces in this world where it does not make sense to have just single stall, like closed room bathrooms. It's not practical. Maybe more of these should be made available, like as we, you know, think about planning, when buildings are being planned and set up, like, okay, maybe we'll have more single stall, you know, unisex bathrooms available. But I don't think that it makes sense to do away with the public restroom as an institution, because, like, honestly, the amount of resources necessary would just be unreal. It really doesn't make sense. And it's the whole reason we have set up, you know, this is the thing that irritates me too. This was a cause that feminists in the first wave fought for, like getting women to have public accommodations, restrooms available, made it so that we could leave the house and participate in society more. Before that, most of the time, women did not go out much because there was nowhere for them to go that was safe. You know, they could only be out for a short period of time because they'd eventually have to go. You know, the public restroom was something that women, you know, campaigned for and created. It's an interesting history when you look into it. So I don't, this blasé attitude about if women don't have restrooms, we don't have public accommodation, you know?
Anybody can use it. There's places in Europe that are like that, and I'm surprised Canada isn't more about that.
They're coming along. They have, I think, a lot of single bathrooms in a
Great.
lot of places now. So
So I'm going to be on agreement with you, Mom. I don't necessarily think a person who looks like a man or is biologically male but identifies as a woman should be using the woman's room. That's just inappropriate on me. I don't care how you identify. It's uncomfortable for women. So do you see what I see, Coda
But
and
he is a
Mom?
woman,
That there's this desire to push this trans
right?
narrative on top of
Yes.
yeah, that
everybody.
drives me
Yes.
crazy.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's why I think we should make single stall bathrooms for people who are non-binary, because
Excellent.
people that nobody's going to care if you have a dress uh,
Yeah.
and a beard if it's just one stall thing and you walk the door and you get the heck out when you're done.
That's right. That's right.
And
And mhm,
the sport thing is a problem too, right? Because when you put a biological male with a female,
mhm,
what do you think's going to happen? They're going to sprint.
that's right.
And
That's
so
right.
we need to create different categories, in my opinion.
In my opinion, too, because we're not all the same. And again, let's go back to there might be some trans identifying people who don't want to medicalize and look like a man or a woman, but they're different than me and you. And so, what do we do with those people? We can't lump them in with us because me and you are being very respectful to men and women and understanding that we're sort of asking to coexist and to move forward and sort of be a part of. But those people, I feel like they don't want to be a part of. I feel like they want to cause problems.
Yeah, and we got to be careful with what we read on the internet too, because sometimes those people that are on the internet, there's a whole bunch of crap that goes on, and you don't know what people are saying. And
Yeah.
we have to respect a lot of detransitioners in America too.
Oh,
It's
thank
really,
you.
really sad.
Oh gosh, you're such a great kid. You know, it's sad. You know that I interview a lot of the detrans. So tell me about that in your country. Are there
It's
detransitioners
not
in
really
Canada?
talked about because there's a lot of therapy. And if
Oh,
people do
When
detransition, a lot of Canadians are very supporting.
wow, that's
when I
great to
don't
Okay,
hear.
yeah, listen, okay. This is putting forward the mythology that these detransitioners didn't get a lot of therapy. Most of them did.
Sorry, Mom.
I personally don't know much about it, but
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know.
So
Nobody's ever.
yeah.
I haven't heard stories from Canada yet, but
Hmm.
we'll have to wait and see.
I know of a number of
A lot of
detransitioners
Well,
in
my
it's
Canada.
inevitable.
a lot of my GSA friends say that if they do detransition, we need to support them. We need to love them, right?
Wow,
Which is
great,
very
beautiful,
good. I mean,
We hope so. But
excellent.
I don't know about everybody else who are doing the same thing though in Canada. There's a lot of people here that are kind of negative towards trans too.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm going to tell you, I lived 30 years this way, and I have never felt more hated, for a lack of a better word, than now. And that's weird to me. And I do think it comes from trans activism, pushing some kind of agenda onto the rest of the world to accept
That's
us
what
or
I was
your.
telling my son. Like I don't know my I've known
blurt out
about
my
the
name.
term. So that's what I was trying to say to
Mhm.
Coda that years ago. I mean, there was always transsexuals, and there was not a problem like this. I'd never heard it being a problem where they're fighting over bathrooms, and I think we just respected each other, and we were either male or female, right?
That's
You
right.
went one to the other, not in betweens.
That's right.
Not half a beard and half a dress. I don't get it. I don't get that at all. But that's my opinion. I can't.
And you're allowed to. Well, that I want your opinion, and it's my opinion too. So just so you know, I make an effort to look this way. Do you think
No,
anyone would ever question if I went in the men's room?
Nope.
no, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. How about if I went in the women's room?
Mm.
So that's the whole point of being a transsexual. We don't want people to point us out. We want to slide in and slide out. But that's not what's happening now. It's more like, look at me. I'm a woman in a beard and I'm using the ladies' room. It's like that. What are you doing?
No.
Like, that's going to confuse people. Like, that's why I say we need to create just one thing where nobody goes in, where one person goes in and gets the heck out.
Yeah, but like your mom said, we used to always go into the bathroom and no one cared. Now all of a sudden it's a huge political
Yeah,
agenda.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like,
No, it's
again,
also because they've
Say a
taken
lot of
away
trans-
female restrooms
trans
entirely
People
Hmm.
in many
know that.
places.
That's right.
And I
Like
said,
me
it's never like
your
this
son.
before. What the hell? You know?
That's right. Like me and your son. We're me and him are put in this space now where we have to be like, well, wait a minute. We're trying to just be
Hey, baby.
ourselves here. We don't want to be a part of this, but because we
and
are
Marcus,
trans.
and Marcus, and
Marcus is a great friend. Yep, that's
There's
right.
no
Lots of
trans
us.
people that
It's
have
okay.
been in sports here.
Oh God.
And I mean, it's supposed to be all-inclusive sport, but you tell someone you're trans, and then all of a sudden everybody knows that you're trans.
that's
Like,
what happened to me. I was playing a sport with Special Olympics, and it's men and women together, and
Okay.
I outed that I was trans, and I talked about it quite briefly because I'm autistic. I can't hold my thoughts in, and
Okay.
somebody got really mad and called the coach, and I was in a lot of problems.
Oh no. So you were playing in the sports. Oh, you're playing as in the boys team, right?
No,
It's all
it's
inclusive.
it's a
Oh, it's all
Special
inclusive.
Olympics.
I get it. Okay. But if it's all inclusive, then I don't understand.
I
why
think
they don't
parents are
accept-
worried about trans people. They think
There you
that they're bad and they're gonna do something to their kids or whatever,
There you go. That's it.
or
Thank
something
you.
like that.
No, you're
Well,
right.
maybe they're
That's
worried
exactly
about
it.
the
Now I get
social
it. That's exactly
contagion
so
that
that's the
happens
problem
when
with these other
girls
people
interact with these
creating a
other
problem for people
girls.
like us. Because no one would have had a problem with you, Coda, 5 or 10 years ago. Nobody would have had an issue with it at all. But now people
No,
see
it's
us as a
different.
threat.
They think that you're gonna use the same changements as them.
That's right. That's right.
This sport though that was soccer. So these people are coming from
basketball.
home already into their clothes, and they're going
Mhm.
back home into their
Right.
same clothes. So I don't understand the problem there. But
It was
anyways,
for basketball and for soccer, and I think a lot of people they had special needs children there, so I think they're very worried about what's going on because there's
Yeah.
a lot of craziness
There's-
happening.
that's because of the this crazy ideology. It's driving people
That's right.
crazy.
That's right.
Yes, exactly. And
It just makes me
Don't forget to
angry.
subscribe to the
what I
Terry
want
Strange
people to
channel.
know is that in the real trans community, get off this crazy internet thing and go and talk to real people.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're-
I swear,
so
like the coach told us she got like 1,000 phone calls that day. The day that Coda said something to someone, and
Mhm.
I don't know if someone heard, but they went and spread it around.
What?
Coda was
Because
trans.
I was talking to myself out loud a little bit. I have
Okay.
autism.
So someone
Okay.
heard it. I don't know. People eavesdrop. You know what I mean?
Oh
They
my
don't mind their own
God.
business.
No kidding. But that's what I'm trying to get at and what you're trying to get at. Now people hear trans and they freak because they think it's going to indoctrinate their own kids or something weird is going to, oh, you're a weirdo because you're trans
creating
because there's
more
so many
transphobia.
weirdos. That's actual transphobia. That is actual transphobia. But but I'm going to say this, and this is very controversial because you know me, I'm very controversial because I say what I want to say. But that being said, I think the trans rights activists are the ones who created this problem for us. So they've made people,
Exactly.
Yeah.
yes, they've made people fearful of us.
And I always tell people like I've gone to an argument with this person.
I don't
online
know
once,
if
and she
that's the
decided to post
case.
my stuff on the internet when I politely
You
asked her
know,
not
I
to.
think
And I said,
people
I don't think children should medically transition until 18.
were against this.
That's what I said. And then she just got really mad and called me a devil's recruiting activist. And
Like, people have been against this forever. Okay, like, I have a copy of Janice Raymond's The Transsexual Empire that was written in the 70s. You know, I've met, you know, women, lesbians who were involved in, you know, the lesbian community of the 60s and 70s. They dealt with this issue. They didn't like it at the time. They were the first people kind of actually issuing the warnings against it because, you know, these men were trying to invade their community, and some of them did, and cause problems for them, and didn't respect their women only spaces. I mean, this was a big issue with Mishfest as well. It's been going on for decades that people have had a problem with this. The issue is that it just wasn't mainstream and it wasn't causing problems for the average person. You know, it wasn't something that the average person had to contend with. So when it was just like the small women's community, hi baby, then, you know, people didn't have the same level of investment in it. When it was just, you know, coming for and impacting women only spaces, then it really wasn't the issue. And then, of course, there's like the way this impacted feminists as well. Oftentimes, the lesbian, you know, community interlaps with that, but specifically, this became an issue in the domestic violence sphere. You know, a lot of organizations that provided housing for women facing domestic violence, also women rape shelters, have, you know, been dealing with this issue for decades as well, of men trying to access their resources, you know, and they've been shut down and silenced for many years. And now it's become mainstream because it's become so much more popular and much more accepted. So yeah, people are starting to see what other people have been facing for decades. You know, what's really impacted. I mean, you get a little bit of it all here at the Terry Strange channel. Since I am taking a pause here to talk, I did want to respond to this, that I agree with you, Mountain Esoteric, about the fentanyl epidemic and just like the drugs epidemic that we're having in the US right now. Also homelessness, having a bunch of single stall bathrooms available, you know, in public places, the few of them that still exist, it's not going to bode well, you know. It will not be good. I do see that. I see a lot of bathrooms getting trashed. I see a lot of, you know, I don't think that it would be good, at least in most major cities, to have this going on. Honey, I don't want your butt on camera, so can you please not do that? Come here. Come on. Oh. Ow. Yeah. Okay, baby, I want you off of me because you're being fake. You're being fake. You know you're being fake. Come on. Get off of mama. Come on. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, and it's also a place where assault can occur. Yeah, to me it seems more dangerous. Like having an open women's restroom, like there's a bit of danger in it, but like there's likelihood that there's going to be other women coming in, you know? I mean, that's also the safety of a female only space or a space designated for women is that, you know, in all likelihood, women are going to be coming in. So if something does happen, you would have a woman help you.
I said, hang on.
I know. It's crazy.
And I said, just hang on. You know, like,
It is funny.
like
But
if a
it's
kid
stupid.
needs to socially transition, that is a little bit more reversible than medical.
You think? That's
Right.
right.
Not
It's
necessarily.
kinda funny what
It's the
people say
beginning
because
of the
it's-
trajectory.
Say?
She called me a devil recruiting activist.
I mean, it says everything. You see how you can't even say anything opposing to these trans people.
She's
This
not
isn't a-
even trans. She's not.
Oh my God. You've got to be kidding me.
And she's not even a trans. She doesn't support trans people. And I said,
What?
hang on. So can we just, I said, can we hang on a second here? I said, just a person can socially transition under the age of 18. Having a little backlash from friends after is not going to have the long lasting side effects that a medical transition can have.
Totally.
I never said that to her, but that's what I felt like shouting through the screen and saying to her is that I am not a devil recruiting activist. I am not this crazy woke activist that people think I am.
Wow.
And like most trans people that are not crazy on the media do not think like these crazy radical
That's right.
people that tend to be calling themselves things that they are not.
That's right.
And I said, so get off this crazy woke internet BS that people.
You
claim to
see,
say
they're
that, "Oh, you're
valid, but these other people are
There you
not.
go. There you go.
And,
You're
and that to me
Yeah,
just,
you got a great future ahead of you, kid. No, it's so true. It's the internet.
why
It's the
is your
internet. It's made
insanity
it's
more
made
valid
kids
than
have
somebody
lots of mental
else's?
health issues, and it's not trans. It's something else. They're dealing with something, and they're just seeing trans as I think, as a way to sort of belong, right?
But that's kind of our fault too, because we put gender stereotypes on people. Like if a woman has short hair, she's a male, and
Unbelievable.
Which
it's
you
not
were
true,
doing
because
earlier.
it's your biology that determines
That's right.
your biological sex.
Remember, this is an 18-year-old, everybody out there. This is an 18-year-old who I just met. And so I want you all to know that not all young trans people believe what's happening is that biology is a social construct, or anyone can be trans, or this guy right here I believe that you really are transsexual and you have a great head on your shoulder.
Yeah, keep
It feels like you're
reinforcing the
taking your
myth so
time.
that this young
You're
woman
taking your
gets her
time,
uterus
and I think
removed.
with a great mom like you have, it feels like you're taking, it in stride.
I said,
This
always
just
tell
makes
people
me
to
so
listen to
upset. I don't
Grandma.
know. I might stop watching it. It's
I'm
still,
only here because I care about you. I don't know everything. I only know what
we're
it
like
did
not
for
even,
me as an older
we're about
person,
halfway into this video.
and I believe that some people like yourself will benefit from transitioning, but I don't think the amount of young people who are saying they're trans are truly trans people.
Yes.
Yeah, children change their minds a lot during play, I mean, so how do you know they change just because they say they want to be a girl one day? Oh, well, I wanted to be Superman when I was a kid, but
Yeah, but I think, Coda, you have a very supportive household, which also is very important
Like
when you're
if a kid says you're
transitioning.
trans, don't say you're not. Just don't affirm it, but just don't make the child feel useless either.
That's right. That's right. So that's what I always say. I'm a parent of an 11-year-old. If my kid came to me and said I'm trans, I'd be like, well, what does that mean? I would question, and I would kind of take him. The first thing I would put him is in therapy, like you did, Mom. Brilliant.
Yeah,
But
that way
I
they
wouldn't
get
just take it at
transitioned for
face
sure.
value, just
went
'cause-
on their own.
Wow.
Not much. I didn't even know much about this trans thing till
Wow.
much later.
Till much later. But you went to therapy, which is that's all I advocate for, is therapy, and years of it before you take medicine. Because what
Does
you're
your
doing
child
is
know you're trans?
irreversible. Sorry?
Medicine.
Does your son know you're trans?
No, we don't talk about that because he's 11 and it's not, I adopted him when he was 6. And I don't necessarily think it's important because you remember what I said earlier? I live as a man. I don't live as a trans person. So I had what we used to call, right, a sex change, even though I didn't change my sex. I live in a space where I'm a man and he sees me as his stepdad, and, me and his mom are husband and wife. And you know what I mean? Just a very normal situation. Now, when I get older and he finds out who I am, when he gets older and finds out who I am, of course, we're going to have the conversation. But for me, it's him just seeing me as his dad, and
For me, I
moving.
think it would be important to tell the kid because
Mhm.
I think it would be just important for
Mhm.
future references. I don't know.
Of course, when he's old enough, I think. But right now, I don't think it's necessary because I don't want to confuse him. And then it could be confusing for a young person to sort of for me to try to get him to understand. Well, I was born a woman and I became a man. It's just it's confusing, and I think that's what's happening to young people today. They're being confused about what it means to be a girl and a boy, right? And they're being confused about that. They're being told they can be a girl but become a boy. That's just not true. You're never going to change your biological sex ever.
Like for me, I think I would tell the child early on because I would feel
Hmm.
like I'm lying to myself.
Hmm.
That's
I
just
see
me,
that.
but
That's right, and that's totally okay, and I respect that a lot. And I think that's the thing which we need to understand. People just do things differently, right? And
and I would
that's
tell the
okay.
child I'm not going to ever become a man because I can't. It's just
Yeah.
the tooth fairy didn't switch that, so
That's right. He knows what trans is because I live in California and that's all they talk about here. So he knows what all of that is. We have a gay uncle, we have a very open family kind of situation. So he's around all of that. Just for me, I felt like I wanted him to see me as a man and not as a trans person because trans is so political now. It's not like it was
How
when
did
I
it become
trans.
so bad? Like, what happened?
It's a great
I
question.
never heard.
It's
well,
a
when
great
one
How
question.
did it
person
just? They never stopped
Oh,
talking
it
about it.
became mainstream because of the activism of people like Buck. Became mainstream, became trendy, became the new frontier that everybody wanted a piece of. And it also became the most highly regarded, upheld victim status that everybody wanted to associate itself with in some way, either as an ally or as actually identifying with it. Because for some reason in this culture, the bigger of a victim you are, the more oppressed you are, quote unquote oppressed. Take that with a grain of salt, please, as I'm saying that. The more status you're given, you become and I think, again, like I said, this is a reason why so many autistic people like Coda here get sucked into it, because it does confer status. And these people are generally obsessed with hierarchies. Like, they notice them right away. And they, try to position themselves in them as comfortably as they can. Mountain Esoteric has mentioned a story that occurred in Australia. I heard an awful story that occurred in Australia. I don't know what you're talking about or what it was in relation to, but I'm assuming it's something to do with the bathroom. I think I'm going to cut it off here. Buck Angel is a mess. I don't know what else to say. Buck Angel is a mess. I don't know what to even think. Buck, I remember years ago, I saw a documentary being done about Buck, and she was living in Mexico at the time, married to a woman, and they divorced. And it was so interesting because, like, at that time, the fact that she was female, it had implications in the divorce. Like, they weren't ever really married at the time. So the wife was able to, like, basically screw Buck over in the divorce, from what I remember. And of course, that woman was a sadomasochist. it's just a dark world, you know, and I think that too, you know, when listening to Buck and how Buck is kind of becoming this voice of reason, it's kind of important to, not that I think a person should be judged completely by their past, but again, like this is a person who was a porn star, you know, and made their name and wealth through doing that and through this kind of gimmick of being the FTM porn star, and is now positioning themselves as a voice of reason and honestly, like I said again, I'll just say this one more time, controlled opposition around this issue. You know, if Buck and people like Buck can get in there and try to control the narrative, they can, you know, again, lend credence and legitimacy to this falsity. And that's what it is. At the end of the day, it is a non-truth. You know, Buck is no more, you know, and even if she acknowledges that she's female, I don't think it matters because again, like she's stating she's living as a man. A woman can't live as a man. A woman is not a man. You can't live as something that you're not. A man can't live as a woman. That doesn't work. You can only ever be, you know, what you are. And you were made the way you were for a reason and a purpose. And I find this kind of thing tragic, and just, you know, watching this and the fact that this young girl, 18 years old, is already on the path of going to be sterilized. And they're just laughing and talking about it and being like, oh, that's because you're a real transsexual. I mean, Buck is being very, I feel very, very irresponsible, you know, because she got to keep her uterus for years, for a long time before it ended up having to get cut out. Like, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing at all that we have this situation where we have so many young women like the one in this video being sterilized. It's going to have negative repercussions for them in the future and for our society generally. You know, we have less women able to bear children. How is that going to pan out in the future? Apart from that, what is it going to mean for her health costs as as an adult? Like a hysterectomy, you know, double breast, you know, a double mastectomy, breast amputation. She's talking about getting, this is going to have severe impacts on her, you know, body physically. And she wants to go into nursing and be a nurse. Okay. When women have their breasts removed, they lose a lot of muscle mass in their chest. I have spoken to a woman recently in the past year who told me that because of her double mastectomy, and again, she had this done because of getting sucked into this trans cult from the internet at an early age. Because of it, she couldn't fully lift her arms over her head. Like she couldn't do that. So I want you to think, and this was one individual, obviously, but I have to think how many individuals are going to have this kind of complication from having their breasts removed. You know, both breasts removed, the loss of the muscle mass, and just the complications that come from having scar tissue on your chest. Like, what is that going to mean for this individual particularly? Like, I think her dream of being a nurse is going to be, you know, very much impacted by the fact that she's going to be going through these major surgeries. You know, having your womb removed is a big deal. Having your breasts removed is a very big deal. These are not simple, complication-free, I don't even say like complication-free. They come with a myriad of complications that you're going to have to live with. And there are going to be physical repercussions on your body when you have organs removed, when you have healthy tissue removed. There's serious implications for your body. You know, when you mess with like the reproductive system, you know, removing the reproductive organs, all of there's so much that's going on in there, you know, that is impacted. It will impact your bladder. It will impact your kidneys. It's likely to cause many issues, like, and how much are they going to remove? Like, is she going to have her uterus removed? Are they going to remove the cervix? What kind of hysterectomy are we talking about here? Like, she's 18 years old. You know, they talk about like, can a 10-year-old consent to not go through puberty? Okay, I don't think so. And neither do I think an 18-year-old is really ready to sterilize themselves. I don't think that. I think it's a really bad idea for an 18-year-old to have her uterus removed if there's nothing wrong with it. You know, if you have to have it removed because there's something wrong with it, okay. But there's nothing wrong with her uterus. There's nothing wrong with her breasts. She's having her entire reproductive capability removed at a very young age. 18 is very young. And then she's going to have to live with the, you know, complications of having had these surgeries for the rest of her life. Like, if anyone's had like surgeries, amputations, phantom pain is a real thing. Like, scar tissue is a real thing. Pain is a real thing that people face. You know, she may develop chronic pain issues. There's so many things. It's to me just totally nuts. It's totally nuts. And then Buck is just, you know, being cheerfully endorsing it like it's no big deal. It's a big deal. It really is. It's not, you know, there and this artificial like way that they determine who is and isn't a real trans person based on like the level of quote unquote effort they're putting into like passing. That to me is just astounding as well. It's so classist as well because, you know, with enough money, anybody can make themselves look, you know, enough of a way. I mean, with the females, it's not always the case, I think, unfortunately. Like I said, you know, we discussed Buck's appearance earlier, but, you know, on camera, people can tend to look, you know, more feminine or masculine based on, you know, certain things that they do, ways they hold themselves. And if they're not interacting or being around, you know, people who are members of the sex they're trying to impersonate. So Mountain Esoteric, to be so fetishized during a time the general public knew very little about FTM certainly would create a particular lens from which Buck is viewing current trends and current events in society. I think so too. You know, I think her background is one that lends itself to, I mean, she's part of the explosion of this phenomenon. I remember like back in the day, Buck was the most famous trans man. And it's just so sad. I think Buck still is. I can't, maybe Chaz Bono is more famous now. There's another tragedy. God, such a tragedy. I concur. You know, like this person's mother's even in the video with her. Like she's still so dependent on her mother, and she's autistic, so she's likely to be dependent on others in a lot of ways throughout her life. I don't think that, you know, a couple of years therapy as a teenager is gonna do something. You know, like I said, I've met people who've gone through these therapies before, and they just, all it does is it's just the same thing with like a lot of people's college degrees and educations. They don't really do anything except teach people to say and do the things that they need to do, jump through the hoops that they need to jump through to get the thing that they want to get. All right, but education isn't happening. Real therapy isn't happening. Okay. Like this kind of phenomenon doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from somewhere. It was discussed earlier in this video that, you know, I can't think of a single female transitioner I have known that hasn't experienced or been a victim of, you know, incest or child sexual abuse. I can't think of one. So that kind of complex trauma tends to create self-destructive identities and habits in people. And, you know, the like I've talked about with the overeating, this is another way that, again, women and girls particularly, there is this phenomena of social contagion with it. Like it was more popular when I was younger for girls to start like dieting together or cutting together, you know, one girl starts cutting and then the other girls start doing it. Like one girl starts, you know, restricting her food, you know, counting calories, seeing how little she can eat. And, you know, they meet up and they talk about it. This is the kind of sick thing that girls do. And it's a way that they bond through self-destruction. I don't see this as any different, honestly, because they basically create a whole new persona, which is about destroying what was there before. And it's very trendy and it's very, very easy once one is, you know, sucked into the trend and socially transitioning, that they get put on this roller coaster that leads to medical transition. And it is destructive. You know, we really do need to be like, again, like I've said, we really do need to be concerned about the number of young women that are being sterilized. It's going to have serious ramifications for future generations if we have a large portion of the population that has effectively been sterilized. And I don't really have anything else to say about this. It was just upsetting. I couldn't even finish it. And Buck just infuriates me, honestly. I mean, I'm not raging like I could be. When I say infuriates, I find it so wicked, I guess, that Buck is out here, and Buck isn't the only one, but you know, there are these trans people out here trying to, you know, do damage control and become controlled opposition so that the narrative is kept around this issue is kept within a very small framework of like what is acceptable to question here. And honestly, like, I just think the whole thing is nuts. And I'm wondering when we're going to wake up and figure out that it's nuts as a society. Like, when are people going to snap out of the mass collective delusion? Because it's not based in reality. I don't know. Thank you for watching. I hope you all, if you've made it this far with me, thank you. Thank you for those who participated in the chat. I don't know if I got to everyone's comments, but I appreciate your feedback while watching this. And thank you for watching it with me. And if you're watching on catch up, feel free to leave your comments as well. I may get to them or I may not. But take care, and I will see you in another stream another time.